So I'm going to tell you a story because I recognize that it's 1:10 in the afternoon on the second day. You've been talking about solar and batteries, and really, how much more interesting can it get? So I'm going to just tell you a whole bunch of stories. A story worth telling, hopefully. So the solar industry can probably be taken for granted now, but when I started in it 20 years ago, that was certainly not the case. It was not a foregone conclusion that solar would be a significant part of our future. And indeed, what it will be in the next few years will be the future of energy for Australia. So when I'm speaking to you, I'm thinking about a whole lot of stories that need to be told, because there are a lot of stories. The moments in time that made today possible, the moments that now allow us the luxury of taking solar for granted, moments that actually brought you into this room today. I'm thinking about when I first started in residential solar in 2007. I would drive halfway across the country to sell 2 kilowatts of solar. I was buying solar at $10 a watt. And I'm remembering when it passed the $1 a watt mark in 2011, I thought, solar panels can never get any cheaper than this. This is incredible. How did we ever get to the point where we're passing $1 a watt? And I think we're buying at around 20 cents a watt today. I'm thinking about when I said to myself, the only future for solar is commercial solar, domestic's dead. And that was in 2011 as well. How wrong I was. How wrong I was. Obviously, but that is what kicked off smart commercial solar in 2012. And I'm thinking about smart being the first to do interval data analysis. This is where we took raw meter data out of the meter in the main switchboard, and we overlaid sunlight so that we had the most accurate forecasts for solar performance in the world. And it's weird to think back that now interval data analysis and matching sunlight to real usage is taken for granted. It's done by every other software platform known to man, but we started that in 2012. I'm thinking about the invention of our first commercial power purchase agreement. It was like I discovered fire. I had really, have you ever seen, what's the movie with Tom Hanks, Wilson, Castaway? And he's been trying to make fire, and he's rubbing sticks together, and he suddenly starts fire and he dances around the fire. I made fire. That's how I felt when I started the first power purchase agreement in commercial in Australia. And the idea that we could install solar for free and then bill for the energy over time at a cheaper price than the grid was just amazing. Thinking about the panel manufacturers who crossed every 0.5% of cell efficiency, those thresholds that took a 160 watt panel, which is what I was first selling, and now we sort of sell 550 watt panels on average, only in a slightly larger format. Each one of those 0.5% increases dropped the cost significantly. And about those engineers coming out of UNSW, UNSW continue to lead the world in the advancement of PV before anyone realized that it would be the energy future. I caught up with Dr. Martin Green last night, and I said, you are crazy. He started in 1970 something. Who would have thought that this would be the industry that he bore through all of the technology that UNSW has developed? All of these panels, every single panel in this room today is a byproduct of their effort. I'm thinking about the installers. It used to take us 3 days to install 10 kilowatts of solar on a roof, and now you can install 20 kilowatts of solar and a 48 kilowatt hour battery in a single day. I'm thinking about the cost of energy that has relentlessly climbed over the last 20 years, the cost of grid power, also the unreliability that has forced commercial and industrial users to rethink about their bottom line, where energy is no longer just part of their doing business, but it's actually one of their top 5 overheads, if not their top 3 overheads. The cost of electricity rises, if you look over a 20-year period, at 8.2% per annum, which is beyond CPI and beyond comprehension in Australia's energy-rich environment. I'm also thinking about the first building integrated PV system that we ever did, coal loader down at North Sydney, where we've gone on to build solar into facades of buildings, awnings, pool decks. I built a sauna and spa at home using solar as the roof, and all the boundaries that we continue to push in what solar could be when integrated into a building. And last night we were at the gala dinner and the awards, so it reminded me of the politics and the political football that renewable energy and I think about the politicians. Many got it wrong, many got it right. Somewhere we landed in the middle between right and wrong. And we will only ever know whether these decisions were good only in hindsight. I've spoken out against many of the decisions that we've made over the years as in government, in the renewable space, the massive bubbles that we've suffered from. But when we look back and what it's created for us, and for the Australian people, it's awesome to watch. Thinking about the first car park structures that we ever did, it's really interesting. One of the large shopping centre groups that we work with, building their car shade structures, they attribute 2% of their revenue to providing this amenity to their customers. The innovation in racking and the faster, cheaper and more reliable, better uses of space that we can now achieve with these innovative concepts. And there's been other influences on our industry, effectively the losses of companies like, I would say, SMA. We were the largest users of SMA, this particular product. Beautiful blue boxes hanging on walls. There are a lot of companies in the history of this industry that, they once dominated the market, and then the rise of the Chinese manufacturers who actually deserve a great deal of respect for backing themselves, funding research, and delivering products that are now incredibly capable and incredibly reliable. And I really appreciate the customers, those customers who gambled on us, on me personally, and many of you in the room. We owe a great deal of gratitude to those customers, people like Bunnings. This is the first Bunnings in Australia to get solar. Bunnings Alice Springs, 100 kilowatts for $400,000. I drove a ute with my Hilux ute, I drove in 24 hours from Sydney to Alice Springs with about 2 tons of racking, averaging about 150 kilometers an hour without getting fined. It was an awesome trip. But these customers backed us, and every step of the way, large corporates took gambles on small to medium businesses in the startup industry like solar. And I'm thinking about the thousands, and I mean thousands, of solar companies who didn't make it. The tens of thousands of orphaned systems that remain out there on people's roofs. And ultimately, it just makes me think about the future of energy here in Australia. So yes, solar could be taken for granted, but still yet, commercial industrial solar is not yet the norm. And it should be. So why is it not? Everyone looks out the window as you're flying into Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, any of the major metros. You look down and you look at that untapped roof space and you're like, in the Australian, you'd say, what the fuck? What is going on? Why are those rooftops relatively untapped? Any of our major centres. The most common commercial rooftop is not covered. And my kids look out the window as they're flying over and they say, why don't they have solar on their roof? And I think it's a really good question. Let's go find the landlord and ask him the same question. The challenge sits in front of us all. It's the biggest challenge we've yet to fulfill in the solar sector. Residential has been done, if not to death. It seems to just continue to live. It's baffling to me, but I admit I did coin the term the solar cliff about 6 years ago at this event. I thought we were just going to drop off a cliff and there would be enough solar around and we wouldn't need to keep doing that anymore. And I thought that resi was basically saturated, but it continues to defy my belief and continues to grow. But commercial rooftops, they are still largely untapped. And it's not because the economics don't work. Break-evens are incredibly attractive, usually under 5 years, now even as short as 3 years. So we know that the financials work. A moment in time and a story worth telling is that recently I offered a power purchase agreement that was well under 10 cents a kilowatt hour. It was actually 6.8 cents a kilowatt hour, which is below the wholesale cost of electricity on a low spot market. It is incredibly cheap form of energy. So we know that the financials work. So why, when it works this well, is there still resistance? Across Australia today, we've installed 7 gigawatts of commercial and industrial rooftop solar. And yet, by my calculations, there's around about 28 gigawatts of untapped roof space potential still sitting out there in commercial industrial land. So what does the future look like? Well, it looks like obviously more, it looks better, and it looks obviously like storage. Australia's daytime energy demand sits at around 27 gigawatt. And if we were to fully utilize that 28 gigawatts of rooftop potential, then we're going to need a significant amount of additional storage. And that's a story we're all getting very familiar with now. And we're starting to live it. Around the 23rd of January this year, Australia had its highest peak demand ever, setting a new record at around about 38 gigawatts of demand in the middle of the day. That was up roughly 30% on the year before. 46% of that energy was met by solar. That's ground mount and rooftop solar, met 46% of Australia's highest energy demand. And this is a moment in time. This is a story worth telling, because people who naysayers, and I turned up at Macca's 2 nights ago here at the conference at about 1 a.m. seeking a bit of refreshment, and there was 2 finance bros in there who, I don't know if they're listening to too much 2GB or whatever, but we ended up in a very lengthy argument. And I'm saying, I know this sector, we are achieving great things, and this is what we're doing. Solar doesn't work and we've got to go nuclear. Oh, look, I love nuclear power, but sorry guys, it's not working anymore. The future is solar and battery. Anyway, that was a really insightful discussion, because it showed me how there's this whole disconnect in the world out there, and probably part of the reason why the finance bros and the big commercial bros are not adopting solar as quickly as they should. Just mixed and ignorance, basically. But so we had our highest peak demand. We met 46% of it. This is just this week. There's a line through here. You can see that 50% of the daytime energy need was met by solar alone. Decent amount of wind in there as well, and hydro. Coal's obviously on the way out. Surprising brown coal is still there at all. But the future is solar, battery, wind, and the future is renewable. The challenge. So with the rollout of the cheaper home battery incentives, we're seeing a massive uptake in residential sector. Batteries are obviously now breaking even under 5 years in many cases, sometimes under 4. And in the commercial space, it's just a little bit harder. Battery returns often rely on an inconsistent framework of spot market participation, which means if we're to sell into that sector, we actually need courageous business owners, tenants and landlords, those who are willing to capture value behind the meter and then step into the market to complete their returns. Because we're kind of in a bit of a tug of war. We need this future. This is part of our future, but we're going to oscillate between over-generation with too much solar and then under-storage. And then over time, we're going to end up with too much storage and under-generation. But it just goes to show you that this is going to take a little bit of courage. It will take investment, but also the early bird catches the worm. And certainly when it comes to solar and storage, the high-priced market events are captured by those people who have invested early. The next 5 years is looking amazing for the return on investment for battery storage. Somewhere up around about 30% in New South Wales is the return on investment for a pure market-facing battery. Now, commercial and industrial rooftops have the opportunity right now to secure some of their returns from behind the meter using it in demand and solar arbitrage, which means charging off solar during the day and using it at night. But the majority, about 60% of the revenue stack, comes out of facing the market, playing into those high price spot market events or charging at low prices and getting cheap energy into that battery. Now, financiers, landlords, and investors can all make money, but they have to think about this investment as an opportunity to secure a bottom line, maybe 4 or 5% return off behind the meter stuff, and then make their real profit of playing into the spot market. And that's just going to take a lot of courage. I am trying my hardest to convince people of this story, to show them how it works. But it is still going to take courage, like solar did in the early days, and like those early adopters did with solar, where it became the norm. And I would encourage everyone to talk to your friends and say, remember when solar wasn't the norm? Well, it is the norm now. The same story is going in for batteries as we speak. Let me finish with a couple of stories. Recently, we delivered an off-grid chicken farm. 8.6 gigawatt hours a year of consumption. It's a very ugly load profile. 3 months of the year, they use huge amounts of energy. Standing demand in this particular farm is around about 1.2 megawatt. And to build a solar and battery system to meet that need was, at that time, quite a challenge. We are meeting over 85% of their energy just with solar and battery, with the remaining 15% coming from diesel. Built in 6 months. So it was going to take about 2 years for the grid to come in. So we built faster than the grid. We built this for $11.5 million. It wasn't quite cheaper than the grid. It's a more stable power system than the grid, because in these types of areas, it's remote. It's subject to blackouts, lightning strikes, trees, car crashes. And we are offering their next project, which will be 5 times bigger than this, at 28.5 cents a kilowatt hour. So that is cheaper than what they're actually paying for this grid power if they were to connect this site in the future, and we're meeting 95% of their needs with solar and battery. That is a moment in time. That's a story worth telling. When we can install a complete off-grid system, meeting all of their needs in a difficult load profile, in a difficult area, where we can build faster than the grid can at a cheaper price, owning and building and managing that asset for 15 years, this is a moment in time. This means that 20 years ago, we were talking about solar parity. When would solar get cheaper than the grid? Now we're talking about, when does solar and battery get cheaper than the grid? Well, we have just passed that moment. If the load profile was more beautiful, not so ugly, we would be under 20 cents a kilowatt hour with our PPA. That's a moment in time. That is a remarkable outcome. This afternoon, I'm signing an MOU with Nauru to provide 100% of their energy, 50% cheaper than their diesel price. 100% of their energy with solar and battery, 50% cheaper than their diesel price. It's an amazing moment in time. The maturity of the technology, the maturity of the battery, the sophistication of our management platform, it's all coming to a head right now. So whilst I loved to believe that nuclear was an amazing product and other energy forms had legitimacy, unfortunately, the only future for the grid in Australia is solar and battery and wind. The question is not how we get there, it's just how quickly we choose to build it. The second story is one that actually means a lot to me. In February of this year, my friend Joe Dionio Electrical in South Australia, shout out to you, Joe, and our hosts, Solara and Lauren from Future Value, travelled up to a very remote village in Papua New Guinea. Took 2 flights, 9.5-hour full drive track. It was brutal, sitting in the back of a Land Cruiser, shoulder to shoulder with other dudes. 1.5-hour boat ride in the middle of the night. And we spent a week installing a 30 kilowatt ground mount solar system with a 48 kilowatt hour SIG Energy battery, 1.5 kilometers of grid to pick up 21 houses and power a village of 140 people. We installed a community freezer and satellite internet to give them Wi-Fi and basically bring a village that had nothing into the 21st century of power. And it was a huge effort. We didn't change the world that week, but we did change the world for 140 people. So what we can do now with solar is life-changing. And that is a story worth telling.